A lot of us experience a dissatisfaction with our lives. Maybe you're stuck in school, maybe you're stuck with a particular job, and you don't quite feel like this is for you. But our attitude towards doing something about it is met with resistance because change feels unsafe, right? And even if you make that change, there's no guarantee that you're going to be happy or that's what you really want. Maybe you feel like you're not prepared to take that risk given all the time that you have invested into something else. But that thinking keeps you stuck in your environment. And it's not that thing that brought you here in the first place. What brought you here began with thought. And that thought changed your perception of your environment, which was filtered through your cognition. And that filtered perception became your reality. Your mindset is what determines what happens today, tomorrow, and the rest of your life. What is limiting you are your beliefs, and that limits your capabilities. You might not know any better, but believing you can't get better prevents you from experiencing higher standards for yourself and from yourself. The path to future understanding sometimes requires walking beyond what you once knew. All I knew was a path of certainty, a path familiar and comforting to me, but ultimately an unfulfilling destiny. However, destiny is born out of the choices that we make, but building a fulfilling one requires uncertainty. Ultimately, it's the fear of uncertainty that prevents us from achieving greatness. Sometimes we think that the risk of starting over is too great, but it's that kind of habitual thinking that keeps us stuck. Ultimately, what do you want? To survive? To be complacent? No, you want significance, but it's that gut feeling you experience that tells you, what if I am wrong? What happens if I fail? This is what holds you back. But that instrument of analysis is not a tool for fulfillment, it's a tool for survival. Maybe you are afraid to change because you are afraid of the outcome. But why? Because you can't tolerate uncertainty. And what do we do when we are faced with it? We try to reduce it. And we do that by either doing nothing or just by repeating habitual behavior. Some of us think that the reason we are stuck is because we lack motivation. And there are so many videos about how to get motivation, how to get motivation. But motivation is something that naturally arises within. You probably are already highly motivated anyway. You are just motivated in the wrong direction. Often when there are more consequences, we tend to shift towards avoiding it instead of feeling motivated by it. That sense of resistance is really there to protect you from your emotions. The reason you might not go to the gym is because you might feel ashamed of what others might think. Even the path of inaction, because you don't really feel like doing it, is an emotion. Or maybe you feel too tired. But if you're so tired, why do you stay up till 3 a.m. playing video games or binging anime? The other issue is that some of us experience paralysis of initiation. We feel like we can't start something unless we're already good at it. I can't attend a music course unless I already understand music theory or I can play an instrument really well. Or I can't start a YouTube channel until I know exactly what my niche is and I have 100 video ideas and I know how to make amazing thumbnails. Plus, I'm also an expert in every single topic I want to talk about. That sense of perfection stems from avoiding a negative emotion, such as avoiding future pain. Sometimes we perceive the fear of failure or judgment as too great of a cost, but each event is met by a mind that experiences 100 punishing possibilities. You suffer, and that becomes your reality, because you are too attached to the outcome. A single future is going to arrive, a future that you have no control over. So the sooner that you can accept that, the sooner you can reclaim the power of your actions. Because ultimately, that's the only thing that you have control over. Aristotle said to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. Whether you put yourself out in the world or you don't, you are going to be criticized and you are not going to be criticized. Life is something that happens to you, but the meaning and directions are experienced by us. And you are going to experience until you don't. So why spend so much of it avoiding or doing nothing? Playing it safe to avoid humiliation, judgment, failure, or sometimes we collect information to reduce uncertainty, but sometimes we get stuck collecting information. I've already watched a dozen YouTube videos on how to get started. Maybe I need to watch a dozen more. Maybe then I'll be ready. That itself becomes a problem because at that point, you're just stacking the odds in your favor, and that is costing you something. The cost to tolerate uncertainty. You're not building resilience, and this is what got you here in the first place. You're so busy trying to accumulate knowledge, but it's not like you actually understand anything. Understanding there's a difference between someone who's read all the finance books in the world and someone who runs a successful business. You don't understand until you experience it, and that understanding comes from within you. If you really want to figure out what you want, you need to tolerate uncertainty, because facing it, especially when the odds aren't in your favor, is part of the process of discovery. How can you really know yourself or know what you really want if you don't spend time with yourself and you're too afraid to try something new? We often attach positivity and negativity to our emotions. Like, what if I try something new and I hate it? But that is the process of building a life, because you build it in accordance with your likes, dislikes, and the things that matter to you. We get so caught up in forecasting our lives that we forget that the best way to understand it is to experience it. I've spent about 10 years of my life studying photonics and becoming an astrophysicist. But guess what? I'm walking away from that, and I'm doing that by starting a YouTube channel and becoming a life coach. I want to share my experiences and help others. I want to be an example and not just tell people, but show them how to enact change within them. I have no idea what the future holds for me. Maybe no one will watch my videos. Maybe I won't get clients. Maybe people will leave nasty comments. But if that happens to me, so be it. If you get so caught up in what could happen, you will never know what will. If this isn't for me, then that just means I need to build a life around something else. If the worst outcome happens, I still win, because these experiences will lead me to discovering it. I might fail, but that doesn't make me a failure. Henry David said, "If you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now put the foundation under them." So try and fail, and use those failures as your foundation to uphold your dreams. I have spent a majority of my life avoiding. I didn't want to offend anybody. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I didn't want them to judge me. I didn't want them to tease me. But guess what? People still judge me. People still tease me. And I left almost no impact on the world and of those around me. And why is that? Because I was too afraid of the consequences. I did these things because I thought that the cost of putting myself out there was too high, without thinking about the long-term cost of opportunity. I've spent the last 8-9 years in STEM, and what drove me here in the first place was a necessity for transformation. But now I'm at a place where this isn't for me, and that's okay. But it's not like I'm resetting back to zero. It's because taking a chance has allowed me to discover and to continue to point in the direction I need to go. And whatever you learned in the past carries forward with you. But you can't get there if that's not a necessity, and if you don't uncouple that recurring thought. Thorfinn serves as a great example of evocative transformation. He experienced an immense amount of suffering, but suffering that came by his own accord. He lived by a twisted idea of his father's morals, and that drove him to commit countless atrocities. His rage and attachment to revenge shaped his identity and his principles. But somewhere within him was the capacity and drive for change and to live by wholesome morality. He chose to abandon revenge and shifted from blame to accountability. If any of this resonates with you, I invite you to start by taking the first steps. And that begins with your habitual thinking. If there is something that you want to do, but a part of you is held back, simply notice it. Maybe you want to go to a new restaurant. Maybe you want to go to a school club. Maybe you want to try a new hobby. You can expose yourself to uncertainty by trying something small. If, for example, you have a group of friends, be the person to invite them. And whether or not they show up, notice your wins, your losses, and sit with that. It's less about control and more about taking action. If you have wanted to try something new, realize that you are already enough. It's about switching from a life passing you by to one of intention. If the worst happens, then that's okay, because you tried. Ultimately, changing your life starts with changing your limiting beliefs about yourself and stretching your capabilities. Finding the right strategy then becomes easy, because you will find it out of necessity.